Welcome to Motley Fool Tech Weekly. I'm Chris Hill, joined by Eric Bleeker and Jason Moser. News this week, Google basically putting out to pasture the Google Reader. I was going to say, we were talking about this earlier. You were this is not anything I ever used, but you were a big user. What do you think of the move?
Well, I mean, it's Google's way. They often kill products. We all remember Wave and other things. You know, the future's moving towards, a lot of people just use Twitter as an RSS feed. They want to move people to Google+. I get why they're doing it. It's just a very dedicated base.
Does it offer up an opportunity, though, for someone like Facebook? Because Facebook recently trying to roll out this news service, essentially build an alternate universe for the internet, because the more, I guess, the more they can keep people on Facebook and saying, oh, no, we'll have your news feed right here on Facebook. I don't know, is that a good move for them?
I was going to give Eric a hard time there. He's so disappointed about Google Reader being gone. I was saying he's the one, right? But yeah. Maybe there are a couple more.
And the one on Google+.
Ways, right? Now, I never used Google Reader, so I can't really attest to how that product really worked. But his point of things moving more towards mobile, Twitter being used as a great sort of aggregator, very free-flowing, you follow who you want. And so I think that really what Twitter has done is Twitter has set the standard. And so then when I look at something like a Facebook, Facebook is being very reactionary here. They're reacting to sort of how their dynamic, how their competitive environment is changing, and they're trying to be more things to more people. I get that. That's what they need to do. Like you said, creating that platform where people don't want to leave. But the problem is, because they're being so reactionary, they're not really innovating anything new. And I think that's the biggest problem, is now there's sort of a switching cost implied there. You're having to get me from my Twitter feed to go over to Facebook and tell me why I need to go over there and not stick with what I'm using. I think that's the hurdle they face. I'm not saying they can't pull it off, but it's not going to be easy.
And everyone's chasing engagement, but at what cost? Because it seems like if Facebook has this news reader, let's say for the sake of argument that it's successful, great, you've got people reading news on Facebook, but are they clicking on more ads?
Yeah, and I think to Jason's point, we've seen LinkedIn go into content, and they've been very bullish on the idea, and think that's a good play. And it is an engagement tool. If Facebook had done this at a different time, not right around when Google Reader's going, you would have felt like it was more strategic than a reactionary move. Overall, though, I like a lot what Facebook's doing, and I would demur a bit from what Jason's point on them is. I like them trying new things a lot, because here's the idea. I mean, it's a big advertising industry, and display advertising is far more diffused. If you compare them to someone like a Google got to create the platform for search advertising. There wasn't anything that worked before them. They got to create it. Facebook comes in with display advertising, and it's just a terrible business. You've got ads on the rails. Everyone ignores them. They have a great platform and a terrible way to make money. They've actually done really good at this, and in some ways, people talk about them pushing too much content into the feed, but the mere act of putting advertising in new ways into a feed and testing on it, I've seen a lot of studies saying it's 50 times more effective at getting people to click on it. And as a company, when your business has not evolved, but has been static for 20 years and all your customers ignore it, you're really going to need to try out a lot of new things to get that to work. I think they're doing a good job with the hand they've been dealt. Now, I don't own Facebook. I'm always leery of display advertising in the sense that they're doing it and making money off user engagement. That being said, I really like that they're taking chances.
For a while, when it was a private company, Facebook was one of those probably at the top of everyone's list in terms of when is this company going to go public? When is this private company going to go public? And now one company that's raising eyebrows sort of in that same realm is Snapchat, which just raised a new round of financing, putting the valuation of this company at $800 million, which seems bizarre to say out loud. What do you make of this? This is the company where you take a photo and it disappears instantly, so that presumably you can send whatever photo you want to whoever you want.
Whoever thought teenagers texting lewd pictures would be a billion-dollar industry?
Yeah,
who would have thought? Who would have thought?
I mean, let's not confine this just to teenagers. I'm sure there are plenty of adults out there doing this as well. But what do you make of this? This seems what's the word? Absurd.
Yeah, and I think the background on this right now is everyone's become obsessed with the idea of these kind of other programs disrupting Facebook, I guess would be the word. So they bought Instagram when there's 13 employees, 0 revenue for $1 billion, which made everyone's jaws drop. And I think Facebook did that defensively because Instagram was becoming a big photo hub. We just talked about Facebook engagement. Keeping your digital life, especially in pictures on Facebook, is an idea worth billions upon billions of dollars to them. So the idea now is messaging could be such a thing. But there was a great study this week, and it was out from JP Morgan, and that showed time spent and engagement online between Facebook and different websites. Facebook's time spent went from 11.9% last year to 15.7%. It's gaining. These other things like Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat went from 0.7 to 2.3. So their percent increase is larger, but they're not exactly hurting Facebook per se. And I think the narrative gets started that all these little programs are going to disintermediate Facebook. And maybe some will do that in a way, but I just don't think Snapchat's or a revenue-less company with shaky prospects and feels a little faddish sending disappearing pictures. It's worth $1 billion. I don't know. Jason, can you defend this?
I find it hard to believe myself. I mean, I look at something like a Snapchat, and there are a lot of things wrong with this picture. I mean, with a company that doesn't make any money, with a product that's just, it doesn't seem like anything more than a fad, like you say. You look at these models like Instagram and what they've done now with their 15-second videos, and something like a Snapchat. This is all sort of a gold rush for the mobile advertising market that is growing in leaps and bounds here. And it's just, the estimates are that Google's going to bring in about $9 billion this year in mobile advertising, which is more than all of their other competitors combined for the second year in a row. So as it stands, Google is setting that standard. And then you see things like your Instagrams and your Twitters and your Snapchats. They're all going after that same sort of mobile ad revenue as well. Now, some are going to win, some are going to lose, but I think that when you have a model like a Snapchat and even an Instagram to a degree that have zero proven profits and zero really proven profitability at this point, it certainly raises a lot of eyebrows. I mean, Instagram being acquired by Facebook raised a lot of eyebrows. At least now you can sort of see where they're going with that 15-second video. I'm sure they're going to be peppered with advertisements. I'm not so sure that the Snapchat thing works though, because I mean, you're talking about a picture that you can look at it for 10 seconds and then it's gone. How you implement advertising into that model effectively, I'm not quite sure.
Disappears into a Pepsi ad.
I was just going to say.
Maybe that's it. It's like a nice dissolve from a picture of Bleeker into a picture of a Coke. I don't know, but I'm certainly skeptical of it.
And final point too, this isn't even an exit scenario where it's being valued at $800 million in public markets. This is a pre-money valuation on VC people who want a return on this. Feels very frothy.
Big news this week from Barnes & Noble, their latest quarter, kind of a disaster. And in particular, the Nook Media division losing, I think, down 34%. And it's almost like Barnes & Noble is throwing in the towel on Nook Media. They're going to stop making some of the devices. And one of the narratives coming out of all of this, Eric, is who's going to pick up Nook Media if Barnes & Noble decides just to focus on the bricks and mortar retail stores? It's Microsoft, because Microsoft already owns part of Nook Media, and why wouldn't they want the rest of it? Is this the worst move Microsoft could make, or only the latest bad move?
Yeah, and I want to discuss, is this the worst move they've made? Now, in terms of
bad ones.
Well, in terms of absolute money waste, Aquantive, which was an advertising company, they bought for $6.3 billion, wrote off for $6.2. Ooh.
Yeah.
And that was within about a 5 or 6 year period.
Right.
It's currently weighing on their earnings right now from the write down. Now, in terms of something that went down so fast, they just did this investment last year. It was $300 million for 18% of Nook. It was already a market that's challenged. We recently saw that Apple has about 20% of the ebook market. With really no investments, just their platform's really strong. Nook was always struggling to sell, in any really meaningful volume. And I mean, I've got the figures right here. Last year, the segment posted $262 million loss. In this fiscal year, it's $475 million. It's just Microsoft went to a market that was already capped in a way because e-readers as a standalone thing weren't really driving the platform. it just feels really bad. Jason, is this their worst move to you?
Worst, I hate using superlatives, really, in virtually everything, but it is a bad one. And when you look at, if the Kindle was a wrestler, its name would be the Nook Killer. Because this thing has completely obliterated the Nook. And I mean, let's be very clear. When you look at Barnes & Noble, you have three sort of drivers of this business, right? You have the bricks and mortar retail stores. You have the Nook franchise. And then you have also the college bookstores. And when you look at college bookstores, actually doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Right? Nook, I think they really need to sort of just close up shop on that and give up. I think they need to focus on their bread and butter retail stores because there is a small market for that, I think. Families like to go there. Schools like holding book fairs there. I'm not nearly as optimistic on Barnes & Noble's college department either, and I'll tell you why. I look at a recent acquisition Amazon made. They bought a little company called Liquavista from Samsung. And Liquavista is responsible for this process called electrowetting, which I know we all want to learn more about, right?
Sure.
Well, what electrowetting does is it offers up this technology for e-readers to present very crisp, colorful, low power consuming graphics. And where I'm going with this is that it's not going to be terribly long from now where we're going to see Kindle rolling out a new line of color e-readers that is going to go squarely after that college bookstore market, I think. And when you have Jeff Bezos going after you, you better duck because he's not going to stop.
Do you think within the confines of Microsoft's offices, a quantive is used as a pro argument in favor of something? Kind of like this. Well, look, it's not like we're going to lose as much as we lost on quantive. Like it's just, I mean, come on, we already have an investment. We're not going to have to write down $6.2 billion. How bad can this be?
I look at after they did it, they still went for Skype at $8.5 billion. They're not afraid of going for the big Marlin, but it has to be somewhat of a cautionary tale. And it was also a very large investment in online services, which still haven't turned the corner. I think it took them from building their online services, trying to grow it, to probably, in my estimation, a better strategy, which is integration within existing products. We see it heavily, it being Bing, Internet Explorer, heavily integrated in Windows 8, and more heavy integration in Xbox One. So I think there was a positive that it was a bad enough deal and they spent enough that forced them to reconsider really getting better use of what they already have internally rather than just going out and buying stuff.
On a more serious note with Microsoft, the reports of recent shakeups in the management ranks.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? Is it, anytime a company changes over senior leadership and or looks at reorganization, it can be an opportunity or it can just be an opportunity to mess things up. Where do you think it stands right now with Microsoft?
Depends if your floating head, a big bald head of a sweaty man, i.e. Steve Ballmer, remains, which seems to be the case. Kara Swisher from All Things D had reported this, and her quote from the anonymous employee, of course, it feels like this is going to be Titanic possibly meaning the ship sinks afterward, that Steve is doing this change for his legacy. It's reportedly happening right now. Concurrently, Microsoft is a big, very org-heavy organization, and or heavy organization, and it's the end of their fiscal year. So I think it's end the fiscal year, start the next one out on the right note. Conceptually, it makes a lot of sense. I just talked about Microsoft doing better with its internal resources. They are orged in ways that are very siloed. I've actually worked as a grunt at Microsoft, so I've seen this in many ways. Everyone has their own budgets. It's very tough to be very interoperable within the company, and they've been working on changing that over the past 5 years. But I mean, you look at something like we talked earlier about the lack of need to define PCs differently than computing devices like tablets. It's just Windows 8 covers tablets, but there's also a broader mobile convergence. So where'd you put Windows in all this? What'd you do with something like Office as you're moving it to more of a cloud-based solution? What'd you do with your other cloud products that are right now are often servers and tools? So I think there's a lot of chances for integration. What's going to happen to online services? I think this could be a gigantic shakeup. I think if done right, it's only going to be good for the company because I think the strongest thing Microsoft can do is continue kind of integrating their stuff in a more wise fashion.
But is there a ceiling on how many benefits they can get out of this if Steve Ballmer remains CEO? Because part of me thinks that as long as he continues to be the CEO, there's only so much change that is going to occur.
I think you're right. I mean, I think there reaches a point where what they are doing, what they keep on doing so much, they start sort of seeing a negative return on that. I think legacy is a very powerful thing. We saw Best Buy. I mean, there were some legacy concerns there. There was considerations of the public, the company being taken private. George Zimmer with Men's Warehouse, we've talked a lot about recently, and it turns out that his being ousted from the board was because he had some issues in wanting to take the company private, and maybe that had something to do with his legacy. So I think that legacy can be something that makes people do things they might not otherwise do, and when that's the case, you have to be really careful.
Yeah, no, I mean, Microsoft's so far behind in Windows Phone, and Android's just really wrapped up the whole market. Sometimes if you're trying to save your legacy, parts of it have already been lost. So
your legacy is that you were doing nothing but trying to save your legacy.
Yeah, starting with a clean slate can be really good for a company like that.
All right, for Eric Bleeker and Jason Moser, I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.